Hey everybody, welcome back. If you saw the last video, you watched me do a bunch of demolition, pretty much removing all of the walls within my kitchen, dining room, living room space. And then at the end of that video, I turned my attention to the ceiling and pretty quickly got pretty defeated. I was exhausted by the end of a couple of days of doing the walls. And I ran into all that chicken wire up there, which made it way harder to take the ceiling down than I had anticipated. And then I quit. I took the weekend off. It was Mother's Day weekend, so I spent time with the family and back at it this Monday morning, and now I have a new and better plan. I got tired of trying to defeat the ceiling using rage and hate, and I switched to trying to use my limited intellect, and I do think I have a solution. So let's look at that. So we'll take another look here. This is what I was running into. All of that rock lath garbage was actually completely held up with chicken wire. So the whole ceiling all across both rooms is all held together the same way. And trying to punch a hole through it and pull it down from behind wasn't working very well. So what you'll see now is a huge mess. I started in the dining room here because this dining room, it has a room above it. And then I wasn't going to have insulation raining down on me. So it's a little bit cleaner to learn how I'm going to do this process. Over there has got a bunch of insulation that'll fall down on me. And over here in the kitchen is going to be the same problem. So right here where I started by punching a hole between every joist. The joists are running this direction. Punching a hole between every single one of them and sticking my head up in there and looking for wires. And that's what the spray paint is. I marked out every spot where I could find a wire. Now over there, I did a little bit more work proving my concept. And what that concept is this little fella. So just a cut everything blade on my reciprocating saw, and then you take it and you run this down the length of every floor joist to separate chunks of this rock lath stuff. And the problem with doing that would be if I hit a wire, I'd probably take out wire or power to like Katie's office upstairs and stuff. So knowing where those wires are, I can stop early and make sure I'm not going to cut through a wire. But then all I do is cut those lines along the floor joists, and then I take this other tool, this big, ugly, mean fork thing that weighs a ton, and you take and you put the fork up against the floor joist, and I actually have to be on my little platform stand to do this. But then you pry against the joist and push that fork down, and then it breaks off in chunks and sheets instead of complete. Like if you look at this is the disaster from punching those holes in there, and then this sheet of chicken wire just kept rolling over and rolling over, and the rest of it's here somewhere. But anyway, it's not going to be any fun, but it's a whole lot more manageable having a process worked out. And at this point, I've talked too much. I need to get the respirator back on and the fan started back up and get back to work. Have you ever seen drywall do this? All right, guys, I figured it was time to talk through a few more updates about what I'm running into, what I'm finding. Let's just start in the corner here. I've been bouncing around from task to task as I get burnt out on one and just switch gears, so I'm using different muscles and, well, different parts of my brain. I started pulling all of the insulation out on this side just because I wanted it to start looking a little bit cleaner in here. And just immediately I found there was actually a cold air return walled up in this floor. And like I pointed out before, the white spray and stuff that's came since the original construction of this, that's all this drilled hole, like through every single one of these. It was a pretty decent idea. The problem is they walled off this cold air return and then just injected it in here. Well, there's a cold air return in here that I didn't know existed. And there was so much of that spray and stuff packed down there that I don't think any other cold air, because it comes along this wall and then goes along that wall, I don't think any of those were ever pulling any air. I think it was completely choked off as of right there. Oh, pardon me. So I think now that I have that kind of vacuumed out, we'll maybe actually have more efficient heating and cooling in this place. Once this project is done, we'll also hire one of those services that comes in and actually blows or sucks the entirety of your HVAC system out and get 73 years worth of crap out of there. But anyway, so I wanted to start pulling out more of the insulation, and I thought I better take a closer look at it just in case I haven't shown anybody what we've got going on here yet. This would have been the original stuff. That face just pulled right off of that, and that's about as thick as we had. Come on, focus. This is just not much. In fact, if I find a good spot here to peel a little bit of this away, come here. Like, that's what we had for insulation, that whole thing. And then in this case, that blow-in stuff that they came in afterwards actually went in between the two sheets of paper on this one. So I don't know if that's good or not, but it kept the mess a little more contained. So this foam stuff, I don't exactly know what to call it. I don't know if this is open or closed or what, but it's incredibly, incredibly light and delicate. It just turns to powder, and it's really nasty. Like I said, wear my respirator, but every time I pull a little bit down, a cloud of it goes across the room. And here's a look at the rest of the room. I did get most of the dining room ceiling down. You can see there's one wire right there. That's what the red's about, and it curves over a closet there. So I can pull the rest of that down. And that chicken wire has been really, really unpleasant. You know what? I've been talking into my respirator, covering up my microphone the whole time. Hopefully nobody loses interest because of that. So this is my fan blowing air out, keeping it negatively pressurized in here and trying to keep the dust kind of down. So the one bit of good news is I moved across this fake wall and started into the kitchen being ready to fight the chicken wire. And the really good news is so far there isn't any. I opened up this much of a hole and there's no chicken wire so far. And I started pulling right there, and this seam opened all the way across the roof and this big flap. So I think if I tug on this enough, most of that ceiling's coming down, which is gonna be great news. If there's no chicken wire over here, that makes things a lot easier. Partly because up here, it turns into attic space, and then there's all that loose, sandy insulation. Vermiculite is what it's actually called, or that blow-in loose fiberglass stuff. But so if I have to keep sticking my head up to identify where power lines are, but all that blow-in insulation is in the way, then that system doesn't work, and I won't be able to run a Sawzall down the length of this to identify or to loosen it up before I pull it down with that big fork. So here, I think is actually going to be easy. I'm actually optimistic for a change. Over here, it seems like it's a continuation of that chicken wire stuff, and I think we're going to fight it the whole way. But I'm also thinking there's not too many wires up here. There is only one light, and then a bedroom wall is roughly here, and there's one outlet in that wall. So I don't think I have to worry too much about power, but I'll be careful. The other thing, in looking at this hole in the ceiling, is that the joists didn't switch directions. They're not running out this way. This is not really supporting anything up above it. This is just to hold the wall here. All that means I will not have to put a beam back in place here. I'm pretty confident I can just knock all that crap out, and it is what it is, and we're good to go. Again, my father-in-law being a contractor, he's going to come and take a look and make sure all of that's true. But I'm pretty confident we got lucky with this too. Anyway, Oh, one last thing. I was being really careful, I was being really smart, and I sealed off everything from the inside. Well, the registers, you didn't really have any other way to do that, but the doorways, I should have just sealed them from the other side. Because right now, I have this much rock lath and up to the ceiling there. And as soon as I go to fight with that, my door is going to come down. Same thing on this side. And what makes it actually a little bit worse is, like I said, this is a pocket hole. Man, Craig's got me brainwashed. It's a pocket door. And there's the cavity where the pocket door used to live. So as soon as I take this off, then this crack is exposed to the rest of the house that we're trying to keep clean. So I should have put my door on the outside face from the start, which means I'm going to do a switcheroo here shortly, and then I can finish off the whole wall to the corner too. But anyway, isn't it fun that I always end the talking points like this? I stop and I think for a second, and then I say something about blah, 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 jabbered enough, time to get back to work. Well, it's true. Bye. Well, I just hooked the doorbell, didn't realize where it was running, and it made the doorbell go off, and my dogs lost their minds. Oh, all right, guys, it's time for a break here quick. I wanted to show you something, though. Let me get out here where the air is fresh. Take all this stuff off. Sit down in a filthy... Look at this. That's my steps from all this blow-in insulation getting a little bit wet. And I lost my glasses. All right. This is what I wanted to show you. Oh, this... Hold on, I need my hat. It's starting to rain. This is the respirator I've been using. This is a Ellipse is the brand. I don't actually know the model number of this one. I'll I'll link it down below because I really, really like these. They're better than those paper ones. And the filter cartridges in there are actually replaceable. I'm on my third or fourth or whatever set of these things. But I could tell I needed to take a break because if you look in here real close, the pleats, there, I can twist that little knob and open it up and show you. The pleats on that are just absolutely caked. I was having a hard time breathing in there, so I need to go blow these things out. I'll run over to the air compressor really quick. But anyway, I wanted to tell you about these. They didn't send it to me. I actually met them at a trade show once, and that's kind of how I learned about them. Really, really a big fan. It's comfortable to wear. It fits really well. I've had this for years and years. Like I said, replaced the cartridges a bunch of times. But this one is just meant for that like particulate in the air, the airborne debris stuff. It's perfect for what I'm doing right now. And then, let me show you this one. This one I just got. I've had one of these before too. I actually finally wore one of these out. Again, replaceable cartridges on it, but look at these. They're actually good for like vapors and stuff. So if you're doing finishing with something toxic like lacquer, you throw this one on instead of this one, and it actually filters that stuff out. So really a big fan of them. And honestly, I don't know this for sure. No, it doesn't quite look. I wasn't sure if maybe the rubber part was the same and you could switch out the filters, but get one of each. They're awesome. There's links down below. I'll link both of them because I'm going to use these later. In fact, while we're doing it, let me point this out. Part of the reason I got a new one is this is going to be my insulation in there. The company is Foam It Green. They were nice enough to send this over to me, and we're going to go into detail in this when I actually get to putting it in. But there's a part A and a part B that mixes together with, there's the tank. So there's a hose and a gun and everything. They mix together, they spray in there, but you have to be head to toe protected because it's a little bit not good for your lungs and your skin. So I'll be putting a Tyvek suit and the new respirator on. All right, back to work. All right, the ceiling is finally all the way down. That is getting close to it for the demolition. There's no more rock lath to come down other than the little bits and pieces you can see up there all over the place. About 100,000 nails left to remove out of the studs and out of the rafters. And we're at least close to the point where we can start putting stuff together, which I think is going to be a little bit more fun. I do have to take these walls out first, but there's actually going to be some new rafters that have to go in here because if you look up here, these ones are kind of splinted together right here, and that's not going to carry the weight all the way to the outside wall. So we've got to put about 5 additional rafters in alongside these existing ones to get that upright. That's not something I worked out. My father-in-law came by and took a peek at it and said, that's the quick, easy, secure way to fix that up. So we can get that out of there after we've secured some of this stuff up high. What else? I did start doing a little bit of electrical work, a little electrical removal. I've traced every line in here back to wherever I could find it, all the way back to the panel, and turned everything off. And man, there's some weird stuff. Like they just sort of piggybacked stuff on top of piggybacked stuff. But I'm sorting it out, and I've taken a lot of wire out. In fact, I wonder if you can see this through the window without me having to go through a big bunch of stuff. But like I've ripped that many wires out already, and there's probably that many more to go. So we're getting there. We're getting there. The other thing, now that we've exposed this stuff up above me, I'll flip you around here and get a flashlight out of my pocket. That styrofoam is one wall of Katie's office. And if you look, I peeled back the styrofoam just a little bit there. That is some of the same insulation that I've been ripping out of these walls. And then they kind of doubled it up with that styrofoam at one point. Same thing, there's a bedroom there. And then if we go back into the kitchen, you can see, if I don't trip over my own tools here, more of the same idea, styrofoam on top of the old insulation, and then even up there, there's a crawl space. So we're gonna rip all of that out as well and re-insulate up there because that'll help keep the bedrooms that are upstairs a lot warmer than they have been in the past. The other thing I wanna point out is look at the mess. Look at the debris. There's some rock lath. There's a little bit spread through there. That's blow-in insulation. That's the old regular insulation in a pile. And then a big hefty pile of rock lath here too that still has to get out. My wife's uncle, who had brought over the dump trailer for us to use, came over to help me haul it to the dump and empty it yesterday. And we hooked onto it, and then we just decided to test the dump feature before we, got all the way to the dump, and it wouldn't lift. And we spent most of the morning checking the fluid levels and checking the batteries and checking everything we could, and even using pry bars to try to get it to start and lift up a little bit and give it a little of assist. It would not lift. We could not get that thing to dump. So he decided he was just going to haul it back to his house where he could work on it some more, full of my junk. So I feel pretty bad about that. But before he left, we looked at the tires and thought we should add some air to those. So we filled 3 out of the 4 tires successfully. And on the 4th one, the valve stem ripped off and it went completely flat. So with the whole loaded weight in there, it was down to running on 3 tires. So we had to jack it up, which my jack was barely strong enough and barely tall enough to get the job done. And we put a spare on and aired up the spare. And as soon as it was all ready to go, he took off as quick as he can because he was pretty sick of being around me at that point. I think whatever gypsy curse I've got going on at this point, he wanted nothing more to do with. So I've got a mess that I still have to get out of here, and I haven't even sorted out how I'm going to do that yet. That'll be for a future video, for a future ball of complaining. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'm still moving forward every single day, and I'm still going to try to get these videos out as close to weekly as I possibly can. This one's a day or 2 late based off of the last one, but I hope you guys want to stick around and check this stuff out. Check out all the links down below, that kind of stuff. Like and subscribe and whatever generic nonsense I'm supposed to tell you right now. Just assume I said it and then you go do it. Anyway, thanks guys. See you next time.